How's it going, everybody? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And today I have the pleasure to be talking to one of my favorite writers. I don't take this the wrong way, sir. One of my favorite writers for many, many years, Mike Carey. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for inviting me on the show.
Thank you for coming on and talking about your new project. And just before we jumped on live, I was talking about how much I love his X-Men legacy. And of course, since the days of Hellblazer, I've enjoyed your work. So I was talking that, my X-Men shelf has been lacking X-Men legacy and his X-Men run for many years now. So hopefully one day we'll have that. And we were just talking about Chris Claremont, and that's such an interesting story that he's the reason that you came back to comics in your teenage years. So when you were younger, were you a fan of comic books growing up, like a kid?
I read comics before I read books. I learned to read from comics. There was a great tradition in the UK of like humor books, anthology comics for little kids with one-page gag strips. Mm-hmm. Like the Beano, the Dandy, the Beezer, the Topper, the Sparky. There were just so many of them. And when I was about 3 years old, two of the greatest comic cons in the UK, Leo Baxendale and Ken Reed, collaborated on a comic called Wham, which spawned a comic called Pow, and then a comic called Smash. Collectively they were called the Powerhouse comics, and they were just gag strips for kids. But I loved them. I absolutely ate them up. And then at a certain point, my brother gave me a Fantastic Four annual, and it blew the top off my head. I realized the Marvel Universe was there, and I think I would have been about 7 or 8 then. It was the story where Reed Richards is stuck in the negative zone, and they send Triton of the Inhumans to rescue him.
Yeah.
Stan and Jack, vintage, perfect, peak Stan and Jack, and I just loved it. I never looked back, really.
And then, just like a lot of us, you stopped reading for a while.
Yeah, and it was Claremont's X-Men. Specifically, it was issue 108. I just walked past the newsstand, saw that cover with the gigantic fist smashing down on the X-Men, and I didn't recognize any of them except for Cyclops. So I thought, these are not the X-Men. What's going on here? And I just picked it up on a whim, and then got drawn in all over again, got hooked all over again. And after that, I never looked back.
So how did you go from fan to you taught for a while too, and then from all that to writing books like Hellblazer and Lucifer, the Unwritten, and then of course moving over to X-Men, which now it makes sense with your love of superheroes too. Like I'll be honest, when you took over X-Men Legacy, I remember thinking, "Oh, I love his stuff. I love what he did over at Vertigo, but he's doing X-Men. This is going to be so dark." you killed it, man. That was one of the best written rogues I've seen since the days of Claremont. Like,
I chose characters who I thought I could voice convincingly, and Rogue was one of them. So I had the luxury because Ed Brubaker took over on Uncanny at the same time.
Yeah,
and he got that was the flagship book, and he got the first choice of mutants. But I got everybody else, and then it kind of didn't matter who I used so long as I left that little group to him. Admittedly, it was post No More Mutants, House of M, mm-hmm. So it was a reduced roster, but there was still so much richness there to plunder. And I'd always wanted to do that. I tried at DC. I pitched superhero stories at DC, but they never went anywhere. I wrote a Superman arc. I wrote a Batman arc. I wrote a Firestorm. I wrote what was meant to be a Firestorm ongoing, but they all kind of got spiked before they happened. And then I met Axel Alonso mm-hmm. at San Diego, and he said, "Well, come and work for us then." And I couldn't at the time because I was still under exclusive to DC. But he said, "Well, if you find yourself free, give us a call." And then when I got back to the UK, the phone rang and it was Joe Quesada, and he said, "What Axel said, I'm saying it too." So that's how it happened.
That's awesome. So okay, then when that offer comes, like I am assuming they were used to your Vertigo titles that you were writing at the time, right? Like you almost like a darker side, which we'll come back to when we talk about Cul-De-Sac. I love that first issue, by the way. But
Oh.
you getting that call from Quesada, was it more like, hey, you know, we've got superheroes? It's kind of like write whatever you want to, or is it more like, how about you try like the Ultimate Fantastic Four first, or like, and then move on to other characters in the 616 universe?
I mean, they gave me the Ultimate stuff first, and I guess that was kind of a tryout. Although, you know, it was a fantastic playpen to try out in. But I think a lot of the impetus for it came from Axel. And, you know, obviously Axel had been at Vertigo, had been Karen's assistant when he started out. And they brought Peter Milligan into the X-verse, and that had worked out really well. So I think they were willing to take a chance with Vertigo writers and just see what kind of a take we had on the characters.
So then you were given X-Men, and
Yes.
that was the comic that brought you back. At what point did you realize, and I don't know if this was a decision made by you or made by perhaps the editors at Marvel, that, hey, why don't we make this into a legacy book, like a book that talks about characters in the past and focus on that? Because I thought that was such a cool aspect of that title. It was so different than what was going on in Ed Brubaker's X-Men, and then eventually Matt Fraction's X-Men Uncanny, and then the X Factor by Peter David. It was like you're focusing on characters like that didn't really fit what was going on everywhere else, and then focusing on the past of these characters. I thought that was a cool thing to do. And it's also almost like walking on eggshells when you are doing something like that in the past, because you have fanboys, not saying any names, that are all about comic book continuity, that are like, wait, could that really have taken place back then? You know, like, so how did that come about? Was it an editorial decision, or was it something that you pitched?
It was a combination of both, really. You know, I was given free rein when I created my original team, and the idea that I sort of discussed with Mike was, let's have a team that has like I'm going to use my hands for this, like a stable triangle and an unstable triangle. So the stable triangle is Rogue, Iceman, Cannonball, and the unstable was Sabretooth, Lady Mastermind, Mystique. And they're kind of like playing off each other all of the time. And then we added Karima, who is problematic in a lot of ways, and because of her past, and Cable, who's also a bit of a wild card. So I wanted a team that was like so unstable, so rickety, so wobbly that even when it's not under external threat, it's always like in danger of falling apart, which Mike thought was a great idea. But the logic of it played out during the run up to Messiah Complex, and it basically, you know, it did fall apart. It coming into Messiah Complex, the whole team implodes in a way that I think was fun and interesting. But I was left with nothing. I was left without a book. And you know, discussing it, the Marvel would take us over to either New York or LA, Marvel West, in the wake of Comic-Con, to discuss like the next 6 months or the next 8 or 9 months of storytelling. And I was sort of like turned up with not much idea of what I would do. And Axel had said, we don't want another team book. Whatever you're going to do, it's probably not going to be another team accreting around Rogue, or not straight away. We want a book that's got its own direction. And I thought, well, you know, one thing I'm quite good at is sort of like digging into continuity and playing with continuity.
Yeah.
And the X-Men continuity is insane. It's sort of like incredibly rich, incredibly convoluted, like layer upon layer upon layer. And I thought, there's got to be mileage for a book there. And the question then was, well, who's the character who we're going to build it around? And I said Rogue, and they said no. And I said, well, maybe Professor X then. And so we set it up that coming out of Messiah Complex, Professor X is kind of, in some ways, a clean slate. He's had this traumatic head injury. He wakes up sort of like not fully in possession of himself and explores his past, revisits his past, and that becomes the kind of the core of the book. And then I did get to do Rogue eventually, but I had to do proof of concept first.
So when you're writing stories like that, I love asking this question to writers that stuck on X-Men for such a long time. At what point, how far in advance did you know that there were going to be mandated crossovers? Right, like you had so many that once a year since Messiah Complex, they were like, "Oh, people really like crossover events. Let's give them one every year."
Yeah, and it was more than once a year, because in between time there would be like mini crossovers that involved like 2 or 3 or 4 books in the line. Yeah, so there were things like Necrotia, where Necrotia was like, come in if you want to, jump in if you think you can use it, and I really enjoyed doing that, bringing Proteus back. But the answer is there wasn't much lead time in most cases, because everything at Marvel, I don't know if this is still true, but when I was working there, you were kind of just like an inch above the road. Everything was happening really fast. If you pitched an idea and it got approved, you were writing it straight away. But they did always do these events, these retreats in advance, where they would bring all the editors and all the writers into the same room and just basically lock us in. Occasionally feed us burgers while we thrashed out where we were going for the next half year or so, which was great. It was like it was really exciting, because you came out of that feeling like you had ownership of your piece of the story. Tom Brevoort, who didn't have an X-Men remit at the time, was usually on hand to settle issues of continuity that nobody else knew the answer to. So he was kind of like on call.
You know, Jonathan Hickman is a big fan of your X-Men run. I'm sure you've been told that you've read some of the stuff in Krakoa.
Yeah, I loved what he did with the X-Men. House of X, Powers of X is just like a masterpiece, I think.
So yeah, he was a big fan of your work and brought back a lot of those characters, like the Children of the Vault and all that. Yeah. So I always say, like, you know, if you're reading the Krakoa era, there are some things that you should be aware of, and go and check out Mike Carey's run on X-Men Legacy. So X-Men Legacy, that you went on for a while on that book.
I did.
Yeah.
I think it might be like the third longest run after Claremont, and I'm not sure who's in the number 2 spot. But
there was Claremont, CSF, Lobdell. I'm trying to think of who else had a long run on X-Men. It's weird nowadays, right? Like it's rare these days that somebody stays on a title for that long.
Yeah,
I think it's wonderful and a blessing. But yeah, see, look, lots of love for your We Need a Mike Carey. How's everybody doing? Thank you all for joining Mike and I in this conversation about X-Men. But true to your roots, by the way, if you've only read his superhero stuff and you're a fan of horror, even just a little bit of horror or supernatural elements, oh my gosh, you are missing out if you have not read any of Mike Carey's Lucifer or Unwritten, which we still need a second compendium.
I know.
You have the first compendium, Mike, and I have people at DC. I remind them. I'm like, hey, you know, we still don't have that second compendium. People would really like that to finish it out. I love an omnibus of that, and then of course, Hellblazer. If you haven't had his, and you like, does that come easier to you? Those kind of stories, or would you say your superhero stories with continuity come easier?
I think when I started writing superheroes, and maybe in retrospect, it's good that I had all of those abortive projects at DC. Because I remember when I wrote the first arc on Firestorm, one of the editorial notes I got was like, "Pace yourself, man." You know, there's no need to throw everything at the reader in the first issue. So it took me a while, I guess, to make the adjustment. And I think maybe some of the stuff I did in the Ultimate Universe is not that great. My Ultimate Fantastic Four, I think, I was trying to homage some of the Fourth World books, as well as the early Stan and Jack FF. And I don't know how much of that landed. But by the time I came to write it,
they teamed you up with the right artist on some of those stories, though, because you had who was it? Jay Lee, I think, and then Pascal Ferry.
Pascal Ferry, yeah. It was glorious stuff. But I'm not sure that the stories were particularly well constructed. But I think by the time I got to X-Men, I kind of had a better sense of what I was doing.
You know, interesting enough, those stories have been collected in omnibus format, and the second volume with the rest of your stories on Ultimate Fantastic Four will be coming out next year.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's good.
Yeah, it's so my goodness, you've got Lucifer, and then you've got Ultimate Fantastic Four, but and Unwritten, I guess, in a compendium format. But we still don't have X-Men Legacy, which would be nice one day.
The Lucifer is in omnibus, which is nice. Those are
two of those beautiful books, man.
Really beautiful books, yeah. And loads of process art in the back, loads of Peter's character design sketches and so on. Lovely stuff.
You guys worked together for a long time.
We really did, yeah. I think it's the longest partnership I've had in comics. Well, actually, no, probably the longest is me and Mike Perkins, because pretty much the first comic I ever did in the US was Dr. Faustus with Mike Perkins. But I've done more with Peter than with anybody else. We just really get on. He's such a great visual storyteller. A Peter Gross page, your eye always goes exactly where he wants it to go.
Yeah, he was solid. He was in that, and then the Books of Magic. I remember his
Books
of Magic is so good. He went on to write a lot of those stories towards the end. But I want to say Lucifer was one of those, we're going to do this now, kind of a spin-off of Sandman, because it is that character from the Neil Gaiman universe of Sandman, and then it's spun out into his own stories. Who pitched what to who? How did that come about?
So I did a lot of stuff in the sort of like the mid 90s for Malibu and Caliber, and everything that I got published, I would send to the Vertigo editors with begging letters saying, please let me work for you. And then I started a dialogue with Elisa Whitney during the sort of the latter days of Sandman. And she invited me to pitch for The Dreaming. She said, we're going to do this anthology book in the Sandman universe. And I pitched a ton of ideas for The Dreaming, and none of them really came to anything. And then The Dreaming became a continuity book with Caitlin Keenan writing it. And so I thought, well, that door is closed then. But then I got a phone call out of the blue. Literally, I had no idea this was going to happen. And it was Elisa saying they were launching Sandman Presents. They wanted to launch it with a Lucifer story, and they needed a script. What had happened was that they had another writer on board, and for whatever reason they decided that although the script was good in its own right, it wasn't a good way to launch the title. I never did sort of get the full story on that, but at the last moment they decided to pay this other writer off and get somebody else in. So Lisa said, do you want to write a Lucifer story for us? And I said, God, yes. And she said, well, how badly do you want to write it? Because we need a pitch in like 3 days, and we probably need a script like in the next week or so. So I came up with the idea for the Morningstar option, pitched it to Elisa. Elisa kicked it to Karen. Neil Gaiman was script editor on all of those Sandman Presents books, and they all gave it the green light, and I was suddenly writing it. But it wasn't a smooth road from there, because Lisa then went on maternity leave. So I had one contact at DC, and she wasn't there anymore. So I went across to San Diego for the first time that summer and introduced myself to Shelley Bond, and pitched a bunch of stuff to her, and then the Lucifer Monthly came from that.
And then you kind of, I would assume you got noticed doing all those kind of stories, because then came, you were also on Hellblazer for a long time.
Yeah, so what happened was I was in like the start of year 3 on Lucifer, and I got a phone call from Will Dennis, and he said, "Would you like to write Hellblazer?" And I said, No, because I'm already writing a book." And it didn't. I didn't know that you could write more than one book at a time. So I said no, and Will said, "You know what? I'm going to do you a favor, Mike. I'm going to put the phone down, and I'm going to wait an hour for you to change your mind." It didn't take an hour. I talked myself into it in about 20 minutes. Um, but yeah, and then so I was writing Hellblazer throughout the second half of the Lucifer run, and you know John is such a fantastic character.
Yes.
He's got that magic quality that it doesn't matter who's writing him. Yeah, everybody writes him a little differently, gives him a different supporting cast, puts their own spin on it, but it's always John. You can always see John there. I guess he's like Vertigo's Batman in that respect.
I love his character, man. And we are getting, let's see, we have the 2 Jamie Delano books. We've got the Garth Dennis omnibus, and we have the Paul Jenkins omnibus that's coming out. I think it's next year.
Last, yeah.
So it looks like they're doing creator-centric books because of, you know, the way the runs have gone, like, and been collected, and they've kind of been collected around like the Garth Dennis book, which is the one that started it. So it's really cool because eventually they will get to your run too, because you did some stuff in there with Steve Dillon, right? And then
Leonardo
Manco artwork in there, the late Jean-Paul Leon, who just an amazing artist. And I think that was the first time I saw what was his art? Giuseppe Camuncoli, I think.
Camuncoli, yeah,
great artist. So there's a lot of talented people that worked with you on that run, and I think Jock did.
There's a Jock issue in there as well, which is glorious,
Yeah, so I'm so excited that we are finally getting these books collected. We've had them in trade paperbacks, but it's really cool and interesting how they're collecting Hellblazer, because, you know, it's a 300 issue series. And then, of course, all the specials and miniseries. But it's interesting that they went that route because they did like these, I think it was 20-volume book set. And then for the Omnis, it's creator-centric. So it will have your name on it. So that's really freaking cool.
It's cool. And I think it makes sense because there are definite sort of like differences of tone and aesthetic between the different runs. It makes sense to break it down that way. I don't know what they'll do with Warren Ellis's run because, of course, that's less than a year. It's only like 10 issues.
Probably loop it in with somebody. Like, I'm trying to think. It was
maybe with Denise Mina,
Azzarello. Well, now you got my mapping brain on. So let's this. I could go on about this for 10 more minutes about how I would map it. Cul-De-Sac from Bad Idea. How did you guys get together? I've had the privilege of interviewing Robert Vendetti, and he's working on projects with Bad Idea. And how did this come about? This relationship with you and Bad Idea?
So the kind of broker of that deal was Pornsack Pichetshote, who was my editor on Unwritten and on a bunch of other things. Peter and he and I were just chatting. We just met up for a Zoom call a couple of years back, and he asked me what I was doing in comics, and the answer at that time was not very much. And he said, "Well, you know, would you like to do more comics?" And I said, "Yeah, always." And he said, "Well, I know these guys. These are like insane geniuses." And yeah, he introduced me to Dinesh, and I did a couple of B-sides for them. The second of which had art by Wayshak. It was a little story called Playtime. It was about some evil robots that looked like cute little kids, and it had Wayshak cute little kids who are terrifying. The cute as buttons, but absolutely feral and terrifying. And so when Dinesh asked me if I wanted to do something more long form for them, I said, "Yeah, can I work with Wayshak again? Would that be possible?" And the initial idea was, why don't we do a story like The Americans, but instead of finding out that your parents are Russian spies, you find out that they're vampires. That was kind of like the seed, and that's why it's called Cul-De-Sac. In the end, we kept the title because it sort of metaphorically appropriate. The kids are trapped in this situation, and there's no way out. So it's a cul-de-sac in that sense. But yeah, the original idea was for something quieter and more slow burn, and then when we got running with it, we turned it into this, which I think is more fun.
So I got to read issue 1, and I was they were kind enough to send me a digital copy of issue number 2, which I haven't opened up yet, because I wanted to talk to you about the first issue. What I wish I could show the art, but I was sworn to secrecy. What made you all decide to do the artwork in this really amazing and beautiful style, by the way, on Cul-De-Sac? It almost looks like a kid's book, but it definitely has like the Vertigo vibe. And I mean, by kid's book, I don't mean like the art looks childish or anything. It looks like the color tones and the framing and even in the way the book is laid out itself. I love it. I think it's great. Plus, lots of violence and vampires. But what made you all decide to how did you all get in touch with the artist? Who lined up with who?
Well, I asked if I could work with Jonathan again, and his background is in fine art, and he was kind of inventing the style as he went along. And I think it was like when he was just starting issue 3 that it really clicked. And he went back and he made extensive changes to the.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, to bring it in line with this latest stuff. So okay. The mixture of black and white and color, the kind of some of those like more extreme layouts and the character designs as well. Especially the character design for Jagger, the vampire huntress who is sort of like sent after the kids in the second issue. Who is like a terrifying grotesque. I think his character work is astonishing.
Yes, 100%.
And one of the things he does is if there's like a big emotive moment on a page, he'll put a portrait shot of that character and build the rest of the page around it, like sort of have them standing out of the panels and build the page around them. I think it's a really immersive. It's a really sort of in your face and it's weirdly adrenaline fueled even when nothing much is happening. And then in the action scene, it's just incredible. There's a moment in issue 3 where the smallest of the kids, the youngest of the kids, Sam, transforms for the first time. Goes into a change state as a vampire. And she's tiny, but she's utterly terrifying. She's all fangs and claws, and he gave that a splash. In the script, it was just part of a regular page, but he took it out into a splash, and it's one of the most astonishing pages I've ever seen in a comic, because she is still a child. She's still recognizably a child, but she's also a monster, and she's coming right at you out of the page, fighting Jagger, who is like 3 times her size and probably 4 times her weight. Working with Jonathan is a revelation. It really is, and I think some of it has been a revelation to him. I think he's been this sort of cauldron of invention while he was working on the book, and he's come out of it in a different place creatively than he went in.
I love his artwork, and I've seen his artwork before. Like, he did something for Dynamite. It was the book with Rick Remender, but his art style here is just it's nightmare fuel. Yeah. And it honestly reminds me of those kind of like the early days of Sam Keith on Sandman, where it's like mixing the reality with like you can't separate what's what. I love that, especially you throw in the colors and the black and white and the panels, almost like the characters are breaking out of panels. Wow, it's a beautiful book, and I can't wait to see all of it hopefully collected. How many issues are you going to be working on? Is this a mini series? Is it an ongoing series?
Five issues. We've expanded to 5 to give it room. I think I pitched it as 4, but we're going to 5, and they're big issues. Like 26, 28, 30 pages. The last one in particular runs very long, but it is it earns that space. Coming back to I like the Sam Keith comparison there very much. The Sam Keith of Zero Girl or 5 Women. It's like Sam Keith and Bill Sienkiewicz had a love child.
Yes, exactly. And I love artwork like that. I love getting lost in artwork like that. But then I say that, but it's also easy to follow because the story is easy to follow. It's a I don't want to spoil it, but it's a there's a twist in issue 1 that I know I didn't see coming. So I like when that's still happening after 40 years of reading comic books, that I'm still like, oh. Now, I don't know if people are aware of this, and then I promise I'm going to get to some questions in the chat because there are people that are asking questions. But Bad Idea has been doing collected editions. At one time, they were doing like Kickstarter exclusives, but they are now changing their format. So they're going to be releasing the books, in single issues. And then it will also come out in some kind of collection as well. And it will be available through the direct market, and I think in the book market too is what they want to start getting into, instead of making it just exclusive to Kickstarter at one time that they were doing. So, which is really good because that means everybody gets to see like the kind of stuff that you're working on. So that's wonderful, and I hope they remain in these big oversized format hardcovers too, because they're beautiful books.
That would be cool. Yeah.
Let me get to some questions. People are asking. I'm gonna warn you ahead of time, Mike. There might be a lot of X-Men questions here, but just thank you, Phenomenal AC. I hope you're doing well, brother. This is where do I start? Let's go with this is an easy one, Mr. Carey. Who is your favorite X-Men character?
It's got to be Rogue. It's got to be Rogue. For a while, it was Cyclops. Actually, growing up, I identified with Cyclops because he's got this kind of, he had this smoldering intensity, Mr. Nice Guy on the surface, but like full of suppressed rage. I felt that was me really. But now it's Rogue. Yeah, for a long time it's been Rogue. I love her kind of unpredictability, her wild card status. I love the way her power set works. I love her voice. And I got to write her as the centerpiece of a whole bunch of different teams to sort of build different collections of characters around her that sort of like played to different aspects of her personality. So yeah, Rogue.
She's a good answer. She's a good answer. That's a good one. Mr. Carey, you've written the X-Men, but are there any DC superheroes? Well, you said you pitched some, right? That you would like to write.
I had fun writing Firestorm. It's kind of sad that my Firestorm stuff is never gonna see the light of day. It wasn't very good because it was pretty much the first superhero stuff I'd ever written. But I had a wild idea for putting all kinds of different characters in the Firestorm Matrix and having different collections of characters take over Firestorm at different times. For a long time, I wanted to write a Dr. Fate story.
Dude, you would kill it. You would kill it. Well,
it felt like it would be a good fit.
I think so. Yeah.
And I did write a Batman arc, which I think was called Grave Matters, but it never happened. I think everybody wants to write Batman.
You mean it was never published?
Never published. Yeah, I wrote all 3 issues of it, and then it never happened. That was what happened to me in the DCU. And I think I don't know. Part of it was a time when there was like a big creative, a big shift in the sort of leadership personnel. It was when Dan DiDio came on board, and a lot of projects that were like in the pipeline at that time got disrupted. And he was frank about the fact that he did not like my Firestorm, which is fair enough. But yeah, I would have loved to do it, but in the end, I had to go to Marvel to write superheroes.
That's interesting because you already had a connection over there. I think some of your some of your Batman work was published, though, right?
Oh,
Because
there was a Batman Black and White, and I also did a 4-issue a
Detective.
Barker story. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
in
yeah, that's it. It
the
was Detective Comics. The reason I remember is because whenever I talk about reading orders in collected editions, I'm like, and then this issue is missing, and this issue is missing, and I was like, oh wait, there is like a Mike Carey issue in there too. The Gotham Knights.
Yeah,
That was the one that I was thinking of, Gotham Knights. And then they collected it in the black and white. So
it was a Scarecrow story. That's right.
you know, I didn't know this about you until when I scheduled this interview, I was like, I got this. We're gonna talk about X-Men the whole time. We're gonna talk about his run on Lucifer and Hellblazer and Cul-De-Sac. But then I was thinking, I remember the first time I saw your name, but I was looking at what you were doing before then. I had no idea that you had written for Caliber Press.
Yeah, that was so. The first American work I did was for Malibu, and it was because it was through the good offices of an editor. It was Lorraine Haynes. So I think she was sort of more of an agent in respect of me. She out of the goodness of her heart shot me around to various American publishers and got me a gig at Malibu when they were doing the Rocket comics.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote an Ozzy Osbourne comic for them, and I wrote a Pantera comic, and through that I got my foot in the door at Caliber just before Malibu was bought out.
Pantera?
Yes, Pantera.
Like the band Pantera.
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
Dude, that's awesome. Wait, you wrote? I didn't know that. That's awesome.
And Phil Anselmo.
Were you a fan of Pantera?
No. I didn't. I listened to folk music. But it was when Lorraine was trying to get me work. Rob Conti said, "Does he like heavy metal?" And she said,
"Yeah,
man. He's the biggest heavy metal fan in the world." So
man, I know Dimebag Daryl. Sure, that's awesome.
Phil Anselmo came up with the pitch. The pitch was evil vampires steal the faces of the band Pantera in order to leech the life force of their fans, and that was the story I ended up writing.
While you were listening to folk music in the background, you're writing the story. Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay, let me get to some more questions here. Mr. Carey, what was your inspiration for Ghostbox? Trade paperback is coming out November 18th. Thank you so much for that, Guillermo. Matt.
So thanks for the plug, Guillermo. This was a story that me and Pablo Raimondi came up with ages ago, and kept on pitching to different publishers in different forms. Initially, the story as we have it has the twin sisters, one alive and one dead. The original version had a brother and sister and an older woman who was like the professor who teaches the brother. So they went through a lot of different incarnations, but the box was always the same. In some versions, we were going to make more of the possession idea, the idea that the ghost in the box can possess a living host, and then you have the memories and skill set of that person. So we were going to pick up people like the locksmith Linus Yale in there. Calamity Jane was going to be in there. I forget who else. Various sort of I think Alice Liddell from Alice in Wonderland was going to be in there for some reason. But yeah, we finally got a green light at Comixology. I'm really excited that we're getting the trade from Mad Cave. It's because it's a gorgeous book. Pablo and Jose have done wonderful things with the art, and we're really happy with how the story came out.
Matt, I swear these publishers, man, they're just cranking out this wonderful material, and
it's a golden age.
Mad Cave is one of them. Mad Cave and Bald and Alien, and of course Bad Idea. Like, it's just coming out of nowhere, and I'm so glad they're getting these wonderful legendary creators to come in. Yeah, legendary. I say legendary to describe you, Mr. Carey, because like you said, there was a time when you were asked the question, like, what were you working on in comics, and you were like, not a lot of comics going on. So I'm glad that because of connections you made, and because you're such a nice guy, and no burnt bridges. It's like, yeah, it's like an open door to other publishers. That's great. And you get lots of ideas.
Yeah, it's really fun to be back writing comics again. Yeah, I never entirely stopped, but for a long while I was sort of the prose was my main focus, and the comic stuff was just like little pieces.
Yeah, we here, man, we don't have time for books without pictures. What is that? Mike, are you looking forward to the return of the Premier League?
As in football, I'm afraid I'm the one mutant Brit who does not watch football matches.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I grew up in Liverpool, so in Liverpool you were either a Liverpool fan or an Everton fan, and I wasn't either, so I got beaten up by both by both groups. Yeah, I've never understood football. Sorry. When I go to the US, I watch American games on TV. I watch basketball or baseball and love it.
You do?
Yeah, I've been to some live baseball games and just really had a great time. But in the UK, I don't do sports.
All right, we got a lot more questions, but I gotta stop for a second because I need to talk about your shelf here.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I see the Sentinel. That's the Marvel Legends Sentinel. Is that a character from Free? Yeah, that is a Free Ren character.
That's Fern and Free Ren there. Yeah.
Are you a fan?
I love it. Yeah, just finished the first season. I'm excited that it's going to get a second.
Oh, that's what! Oh my God, Mike, that's awesome. I love hearing that. My wife is a huge fan. She's been trying to get me to watch it, and I'm like, I don't have time to watch anime. Maybe I'll read the manga. And there's no box set for the manga, but she ended up getting some of the volumes, and I was like, okay, I'll end up reading it. I'm sure I'll like it. I love that. She gave me the pitch, and I was like, dude, that sounds actually killer.
It's such a clever take on the sort of classic fantasy quest. It's because it starts like 10 years or decades after the quest ends. It was my daughter Louise who got me into anime. She'll call us up at the end of the evening and just say, let's watch an episode of, and currently we've got Dan to Dan on the go. We finished Free Ren. We're watching Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
My kids and I love that one. Every August we send the remember the date like to each other.
Very cool. And what else are we watching? One Piece. Which we just
that's a long journey, Mike. I
know.
That's a lot of episodes.
Oh, and Apothecary Diaries is the other one, which is a sort of like murder mysteries in ancient China. Is the basic idea.
Yeah, you're watching the same stuff my brothers are watching. Both of them are big into those. The only one I've saw that out of the ones you mentioned is, of course, Full Metal Alchemist and a lot of One Piece. But my wife and I went to back because we love anime, and the entire house does, but it's just I don't know why we take a break from time to time. So I started watching like Sakamoto Days and the new Ranma. And there's something else that we watched one season of, and we're waiting on the next one. Really cool that you're watching anime, man. That's awesome, Mike. And it's because your daughter
I'm a late convert.
It's never too late. Man, that's cool. I noticed the figures, and I'm like, I'm gonna ask. Then I noticed the Age of X thing, and they're all right. Let's take some more questions because I'm sure people are like, let's see the Premier League. Mike sadly broke some heart. Mr. Carey, is there a current artist that you have not worked with that you would really like to work with?
There is, yeah. There's a French artist named David Beauchard, but he just writes it as a B. And I don't think, mostly he writes and draws. He has collaborated occasionally with people, but I think mostly he does his own thing. And it's sort of horror, fantasy, sometimes historical stuff. Gorgeous style. Some of his stuff has been translated into English. He did a book about his brother's epilepsy. The French title is L'Ascension au Mal. I think maybe the American title is just Epileptic, possibly.
Okay. Do you know who ended up publishing that?
I don't. So I love him. And there's a dead artist named Fred Odon Aristide, who did a book called Philemon. And if he were alive, or if there was some way to bring him back from the grave, I would love to work with him.
David B. Okay, I'm gonna have to look up that book. Looks like it came out a while back from Pantheon Graphic Libraries, the one that published it here in America. I'm gonna have to look that book up. Mr. Carey, what got you into writing comic books? And who were some of your favorite writers as you were getting into writing? Great question.
So I started doing comics journalism in a very, very small amateur way. I wrote reviews and articles for fanzines, for amateur press publications in the UK, for the Fantasy Advertiser and for Comics International. And through that, I met a guy named Martin Skidmore who was working for a comics distributor, Neptune, and they briefly had their own comics line in the sort of late 80s, early 90s. I pitched a bunch of stuff to them, got some stuff commissioned, but they went bankrupt before they could publish any of my stuff. And through that, I started meeting people who were doing the same thing in the US. And yeah, I was an overnight success in 10 years. Favorite writers, well, the first British invasion, you know, the British writers who came over to the US and kind of like overturned.
I love that you call it the British invasion.
Chris Claremont said to me when I met him in Budapest, he said that was not the first. I was the first British invasion. I didn't know that he was a Brit. But yeah, so Grant Morrison, Alan Moore, Neil Gaiman, Mark Miller, those guys who sort of blazed the trail. The rest of us followed, in the sense that there was this blessed moment when American editors thought we were an entire island full of Alan Moores, and that all we needed to do was come over to the UK with a fishing net and trawl us up. So it became a lot easier as a British writer to break into the American market at that point. I remember meeting Karen Berger at UCAC, the London convention, and sort of chatting to her, although nothing came of that. But yeah, it was that was the sort of through line.
Karen Berger, man, she really changed the game, and I'm glad that she's still around doing stuff at Dark Horse Comics with the Berger books over there.
She did change the name, and she left such a huge imprint on that line. You know, Vertigo was was born out of her brain in the same way as Athena was born from the forehead of Zeus. She trained up an entire generation of editors there.
And my gosh, the talent and the stories that were coming out of that, like it's insane. Just how good and how much of an impact a lot of those stories have stayed with people. And some of them have seen some kind of adaptation into movies or TV shows or animated features, but it's really cool just to see just how much was coming out of Vertigo. And even when DC canceled Vertigo, which didn't take that long for it to come back, so it is coming back. So it just goes to show you just how amazing that imprint was and is to this day. And I think when I think of the British invasion, I do think of like the Vertigo. Like I cannot not think about the Vertigo imprint. Like that was a big staple to me of like, who are these people that just kind of came out of nowhere? Man, they're really good at writing messed up stories.
Yeah, they sort of ignored all the rules. It was crazy. There's a I think he's a physicist, Thomas Kuhn. He came up with this idea for how science changes. He said there's a kind of myth that it's a sort of orderly process of building and building and building, standing on the shoulders of giants. He says that's not how it happens. What happens is you have a great thinker who creates a template, and everybody follows that template, and then another great thinker comes along and knocks it down, and everybody follows the new template. So everybody's into Newtonian physics until Einstein says Newton is a pissant, and it actually works like this, and then everybody's into Einstein. And I don't know enough about science to know if that works for science, but I think it works for storytelling. That you get a writer who like sells a format for stories. I think Claremont did it with the X-Men, and I think Alan Moore did it when he was writing things.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, I was explicitly following those templates because there weren't that many comic scripts available when I broke in. I remember the script for Watchmen 1 was in the back of the trade paperback of Watchmen. Yeah. So I had that. And there was a Sandman script in the Dream Country trade. I think it was the Calliope story. Or it might have been Dream of a Thousand Cats. One of those. The script was in the back of the Dream Country trade. So I was writing in that format because those are the models I had available to me.
Oh my goodness, you looked at an Alan Moore script.
Yeah. And I realized quickly enough that you can't write as Alan Moore because there's already an Alan Moore. And it works, but it doesn't work for anybody else.
Yeah, you were absolutely right about that. Mr. Carey. We're talking about horror comics. Speaking of your non-superhero comics, I'm a huge fan of your highest. Oh my gosh, I forgot to mention the highest house. I love that book too, and Ben knows this. Okay, that book very much had an ending that implied there was more coming. Any plans to return to that world?
We have a completely worked out structure for the second book for like the next 6 issues. Will it ever happen? I don't know. The problem there was that the original contract was not with IDW. It was with a French publisher called Glenat, Edition Glenat. And they will not release the rights to us. In fact, they won't even talk to us. It's impossible to get an answer out of them. I think the French edition did very badly. We did much better in the US than we did in France, for whatever reason. And there's just no interest whatsoever in following up.
In France?
Yeah, we wrote it for a French publisher.
So I got the IDW, the graphic novel that came out. It was a magazine size. I love that book. Absolutely love that book. It's been featured. I've done a review of it, and I've featured it in my hidden gems to kind of get the word out. And yeah, that is something that I do see often. It's like, is there a follow up to this? So
we would love there to be a follow up. We've tried. We've tried very hard. The editor we worked with in France was a guy named Olivier Jalabert, and he doesn't work for Glenat anymore. And he's tried to talk to Glenat on our behalf, and there's just nothing. It's a brick wall. And it kills me because
it's so good, and we just found out the voice is talking to the character and where it's gonna go. Yeah,
and it's some of the best art that Peter ever did. It's gorgeous. The world building is amazing.
Yes. The architecture, and you're right, like the world building. Oh, it really feels like a real place. I'm hoping. I don't know. I mean, we've seen projects like this before, and if you've got something, maybe IDW can do some kind of I don't know how licensing for that particular book works, but since it was published here, I was just imagining getting IDW involved and maybe doing some kind of crowdfunding for it.
It's possible, yeah.
Other creators have done it.
As I say, we've tried many times to get the rights back in house, and we've failed so far.
Damn, I hate hearing that. Is there a genre you haven't worked in but think you could have fun with?
There's a genre I haven't worked in very much. I've written exactly one romantic comedy. It was called My Faith in Frankie. It was a 4-issue miniseries from Vertigo. A couple of years later, it wouldn't have been from Vertigo. It would have been from Minx. But Minx didn't exist at the time. Art by Sonny Liu and Mark Hempel. Mark did the inks, and it looked great. I had a lot of fun with it. I would love to do more romantic comedy, but nobody is interested in giving me that option.
Well, Mike, at this point, man, you've watched so much anime. Now you got yourself a taste of the different kind of genres they've got. They got genres within genres, man.
That's one of the things I love about anime, about manga and anime, is that they're so cavalier about genre fusion. It just,
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Oh, you like when we were talking about the dungeon, like the dungeon crawling anime, the free rent. Just like it's like a genre within a genre, and I wonder how long it will take before America kind of catches on. Even though we've kind of started that too here in America as original graphic novels. But it seems like, and I understand the readership is a lot different. We are talking about Japan compared to America, but it does seems like over there they were completely okay with slice of life stories long before we had things here like Love and Rockets and Strangers in Paradise and books like that before they took off in popularity here. And even then, like, it's not like they're huge books, but they are in the indie market.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I love the idea of a genre within a genre. Mr. Carey, have you seen the X-Men animated series or X-Men 97? If so, did you like Rogue's character arc in X-Men 97 performed by the wonderful voice actor Lenore Zahn?
I have to hang my head in shame and say I have not seen either.
You've been watching anime, man.
Yeah, when I finish One Piece.
Those episodes aren't watching themselves.
But yeah, no, a lot of people have told me that I need to watch the original animated series. And I know it's all available now. Is it back on Netflix? So it's on one of the streaming platforms, isn't it?
X-Men is on Disney Plus or Hulu, okay. I think overseas.
So I don't know.
I don't know if you watched if you and your daughter have watched the One Piece live action adaptation. It's pretty solid, man. Oh, did you like it?
Yeah, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. The casting is perfect. Luffy is Luffy is just someone. A British reviewer used the term toxic positivity. Yeah, he's just so full of hope and like completely ingenuous hope and love for everyone. It's
that is the way to describe Luffy. You're right.
And he's just like the cartoon version of him.
Yeah, they did a freaking awesome job with that cast. Mr. Carey, I love what you did with Charles on Legacy, helping recover him from the horrible things he'd been written to do over the previous few years. Oh, yes. Was that a goal when you chose the character?
Yes, it was. I was trying to redeem him. I was trying to sort of pull him back from that kind of pit. Without retconning anything, without sort of like undoing any of those stories. But it kind of hurt me that he'd always been an idealist. He'd always been someone who had a vision for mutant kind, the mutant kind living in harmony with regular humanity. And he'd almost become a monster in some ways. He'd become someone who'd done these terrible instrumental things, to people he was supposed to love and people he was supposed to protect. And I did want to give a different perspective on that, and to kind of sell a different idea of the character, which was more in keeping with the way I'd seen him when I first met him.
Let me get a question from down here, and thank you so much for taking these answers or questions. Like many, I was surprised to see your name in the credits of a great Barbarella comic. Are there any other licenses you surprisingly would like to work with? You did Red Sonja, didn't you, at Dynamite?
I did, but most of that was Michael Oeming. I was punching up the dialogue, doing a little bit of plotting, but Michael did much more of the storytelling than I did on that book. But yeah, I wrote Barbarella for like 12 issues, and that was crazy fun. Maybe I didn't put enough sex in. I got carried away with the sci-fi aspect and forgot to make it raunchy.
You forgot who your target audience was, Mike.
Other licenses. Well, I mean, okay, that's sorry to sort of harp on about French comics, but Philemon, this book, Fred is dead now. He died, I think, in the 80s or 90s, and left about a dozen books about this character Philemon, who falls into another world, and in this other world, the letters on the Atlantic Ocean, the letters that you see on maps of the Atlantic Ocean, they're actually islands shaped like letters. and he visits each of them in turn. I would love to write a Philemon story. Sadly, there's never been any attempt to revive, or maybe not sadly, there's never been any attempt to revive the character. Whereas Lucky Luke and Asterix, when the original creative teams died, they handed over.
Oh, okay.
To other creators. Nobody's ever done that with Philemon, and it's a masterpiece of kind of gentle, whimsical fantasy. Absolutely gorgeous.
How did you read it?
So when I was at school, I did French A level, which is like senior high school, and we had a French assistant, a French speaking teacher, and he would bring comics into class to sort of.
My wife does the same. She's a teacher and has a shelf full of comics, and I love teachers that do that.
Yeah, and introduced me to so many great books, because France has, like Japan, France has its own comics culture, which is nothing like British or American. They have a lot of very, very long running humor books. They have a colossal amount of sci-fi comics, and fantasy and horror. So yeah, I was introduced to that when I was in my teens, and every so often, because Paris is kind of on our doorstep, we can get there by train. Every so often, I'll just go across. There's a street in Paris called Rue Dante. It's just behind Notre Dame. And it's just comic shops. It's just wall-to-wall comic shops. And like maybe once a year, I'll go over there and just like come back with a suitcase full of comics.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. Okay, hear me out. What if you wrote a comic for IDW coming next year called The Lowest Lounge, about a boy that works in a house with a magic rock from the magic stone in the highest?
I like the way you think. It could be done.
Crazier things have been done by creators.
I will start a conversation with Peter and see what he thinks.
It's a great idea, Ben. Love Crossing Midnight and your adaptation of Neverwhere. Could you please talk a bit about the Japanese influences you brought into the former, and how wonderful was Glenn Fabry as a collaborator?
Starting with that second question, working with Glenn was absolutely fantastic. At that time, he was mostly doing cover work, so doing an actual book with him was something really special. And when we'd finished, just after issue 9 came out, a parcel arrived for me, a huge parcel, and it's the art. There's a splash page in, I think, issue 8 of all the characters in Down Street. They're like looking down this vertical street, and he just gave me as a gift the black and white art from that page, which is one of the most beautiful things I own. The influence on Crossing Midnight. What I wanted to do there was I started watching the Studio Ghibli movies, Ghibli, however you call it, the Miyazaki movies, and I'd also been reading a lot of Junji Ito and Shintaro Kago, like Japanese horror, manga horror. And so I wanted to do a book that kind of crossed the streams, that was partly sort of Ghibli-esque, Miyazaki-esque fantasy, and partly sort of full-on Junji Ito style body horror, and that was what I pitched. And Pornsack loved the idea, and greenlit it. It only lasted for 19 issues, as you know, through three very slim trades. It wouldn't have lasted that long, except that Paul Levitz really liked it. So even though the sales figures were abysmal, but he kept us going for 19 issues, and we got to kind of finish out the story.
So I have a follow-up question. What's your favorite Studio Ghibli film?
Spirited Away.
Spirited Away?
Yeah.
What an Oscars. That's a good one. That's a good answer. It's a good answer.
Totoro is also wonderful. Totoro turns you into a kid again. You watch Totoro and you become a little child. But Spirited Away is, I think, it's just an impeccable masterpiece. There's not a single frame, not a single image, not a single word out of place in that movie. I
agree about Well, I agree about both statements that you made. In this house, I think Totoro has become mine and my wife's favorite movie because it was the movie we would watch with our daughters when they were little.
Cool. Very cool.
When we bring it back out to watch, which we have a 16 and 13-year-old now, and it's all about their friends and a boy, whatever. There's that magical like timelessness to it that kind of brings us together. Like mine and my wife's was always a Whisper of the Heart, but as a family, I think it's always been Totoro. And I'm not sure how old your daughter is, but if you get the chance, definitely go to the Ghibli Park and the museum in Japan. It is completely worth it, because as much as the Disney brings out the kid and everyone, I feel like Studio Ghibli, the park and the museum absolutely do the same thing. Moving, like they actually have like house moving castle and like the legs, like it's huge and you can go in it and it's so magical. And man, yeah, it's like it's every time I talk about it, it makes me want to go back. I'm like, oh, what happened when we've been back? Like I miss it.
I would love to do that. There's a Chinese studio called OMD, like a toy maker, maker of collectibles, and they do these absolutely gorgeous high-end collectibles based on the Miyazaki movies. There's a Spirited Away bathhouse which retails for $1,000. Plus you pay hundreds in shipping to get it sent over from China. It's about like 2 feet tall, and it's got all of the characters from Spirited Away. I don't own that one, but I did buy the railway carriage from the closing scenes of Spirited Away as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the railway carriage where she rides with No Face to meet Zenibar. And it's like one wall of it is open, so you can see all of the characters sitting inside it. Absolutely gorgeous thing.
Why would you tell me these things? I have to Google it. Couldn't agree more about Professor Xavier. Appreciate what you did with him, and thank you for that and your wonderful X stories in general. Thank you so much for the answer and for the writing. I always guide people towards your run when people pander Charles to me. Oh my gosh, this is a hard question. One Piece, how far are you into the series?
We've only just met Buggy, so we're still very, very, very early days. The last episode we watched is the one where Zoro takes the cannon and hefts it so that it points in the opposite direction, which is like a great cliffhanger ending. But yeah, we've got 1,000 episodes still to go.
But that's wonderful that you're watching it with your daughter. Like I bond with my oldest watching horror movies, and right now we're going through Alien Earth, which just came out.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's pretty good, man. It's pretty fun. And I just like so that's how we bond. We watch horror movies, and sometimes they suck, and sometimes we're like, wow, that was a really good movie.
In our household, it's me and our daughter Lou who watch horror, and my wife and our 2 boys are much gentler souls, and they stay home usually and watch an anime. We just watched Weapons, which we really
I saw that this past weekend. I dug it. Have you seen I assume you've seen Barbarian since you're
yeah.
I love that one. And you've seen Sinners?
Yes, which it's been a great year for horror. Yes. Sinners, Nosferatu, David Eggers' Nosferatu, The Monkey, which I thought was like crazy fun.
That was fun. Bring her back.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil it, but that has one of the most disturbing scenes and it's due to the sound effects that I was like, it was hard.
And what an incredible performance from Sally Hawkins. Jesus.
Yeah.
Last time I saw her, she was Paddington's mum.
Oh my gosh, you're right. You're right. Oh man, I didn't know we were going to talk about One Piece and horror movies, Mike. I would have extended this interview a lot longer. Actually, yeah, with writing things like Cul-De-Sac, though, it makes sense that you love horror movies too. You have to.
Yeah.
Although I have met a lot of horror, like we have this thing here in Kentucky called it's a convention called Scarefest, and we're a bunch of like the directors and movie actors and that played in horror movies and have filmed horror movies come. And some of those people are the most kindest, funniest. Like you would never imagine them like being like Rob Zombie making horror movies. Absolutely makes sense, right? I get that one. But there are people that you meet, you're like, wow, you play like a serial freaking killer, like somebody that smashes somebody's skull, and super nice guy, gentle hair man. I love that. And read that first issue, Cul-De-Sac. It was great.
Thank you. Jonathan is just like, I can't believe what he's doing on that book.
Seriously, amazing artwork, man. Who's your favorite One Piece character? Somebody was asking. There we go. Who's your favorite One Piece character?
So far,
he just got the buggy.
Well, it's got
a while to go.
I mean, in the anime, it's Luffy, definitely. I think maybe it's Zoro in the live action version.
Zoro's pretty badass. Yeah,
I love the three swords. The way he fights.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to fight without the third one. I love that about him. Yes, Alien Earth is a TV show. I think it's 4 episodes so far.
From the trailers, it looks astonishing. It looks really good.
I don't want to spoil anything, but like if you're watching it and you're a fan of the original Alien, the way it's shot and even the camera angles and it almost feels like they're using the same tone for the camera filter. It looks wicked, like for that first part of the first episode. It's good. I'm digging it. Mr. Carey, what is your absolute favorite horror movie? Oh, what a great question.
It's Kubrick's The Shining. I've watched it like 6 or 7 times.
Are you a fan of the book too?
Yeah, I love the book, and I know that Stephen King was not a fan of the movie, although he must have come around to it because he was heavily involved in the Dr. Sleep movie, which homages both
that
the book
movie
and the movie.
I don't know if people haven't seen Dr. Sleep, but even if you don't like horror, if you like X-Men, watch Dr. Sleep. It's awesome, man.
But yeah, I think the Shining just has like the sort of endless wandering shots through the hallways of the hotel are they're just terrifying. Even when nothing, when you're not seeing anything scary, it's still. So somebody said this to me. I think Mark Commode said it about The Exorcist. That when the camera goes up the stairs into the bedroom, you don't want to go with it. Something in you is pulling you back. And I felt that about The Shining. Yeah, that the setting is miasmically scary throughout, and the climax in the maze, which isn't in the book. It's not in the book, is it? It's topiary animals, isn't it, rather than the maze? Is that right?
I read the book when I was a freshman in high school, and then I just fell in love with the movie that I never went back to the book. I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head. I know the movie.
I think that was a Kubrick innovation, and it just works so well. And there's that great moment where Torrance's wife is looking at the little model of the maze, and the camera zooms in, and then suddenly you're in the maze with Jack and Danny. The model in the real place. It's just beautifully done.
It's a classic. I love so it's not just me and my daughter. Nowadays it's me and my daughter and her friends that watch horror movies, and I always have to make sure, like, what are your parents okay with? And I'm sure they're all lying to me. And that's okay. I don't make them sound like any kind of way or anything. Like, but I've been steering them towards the classics, like some of my favorites, like Rosemary's Baby or The Omen, and then The Exorcist. The Exorcist, to this day, like The Omen and Rosemary's Baby, they were like, it was pretty good. But The Exorcist, and The Shining, both of those movies scared the crap out of those kids. Like that, like I could see them like doing a little bit of this, because you're right. It's the way that they're shot. It's so different, right? We tend to go with a lot more of jump scares nowadays, whereas that is a lot of like psychological horror, and the camera almost playing that fourth character.
Yes, yeah, really.
you that puts you there. But they still make movies like that. What was one that I really loved? It was kind of remind me of a Dario Argento film. It Follows. It came out a few years back, but I like the way that it was shot, like the cinematography. It really felt like you were watching a story take place behind this like window, and you're part of the story.
We saw that at a midnight screening, and I remember coming out into the cinema car park, and just like anybody walking towards me, I'd be like flinching away. It really had an impact.
You have introduced the fan of horror and anime to Berserk. Have you read Berserk or what? Okay, I think you would really like it. It's my favorite manga. It's my favorite anime. It's my favorite manga for sure. It did like I watched it. It was an anime that came out in 1997 in Japan, and it was canceled because of the ratings, and a lot of it had to do with the time slot they put it in, and also showing it on Japanese television. And it ends in one of the biggest cliffhangers. But the manga continued, and finally in 2003, Dark Horse here in America started publishing the manga in English, and that's how I continue the story. But it is absolutely dark, amazing, and everything that I love about comic books, all wrapped up into this one book.
Okay.
There is 3 movies that's like sum up the first arc, the Golden Age arc. Those are on Netflix, I believe, still. And they're
live action movies or anime movies?
No, they're animated. Animated. And I'm sure your daughter has probably seen them and probably knows about them. And they're
maybe, yeah. I mean, she's seen much more than I have.
Mm-hmm.
There's this weird sort of phenomenon where great manga become great anime, and then they become terrible live action movies. The live action movies of Parasite and Brotherhood and Attack on Titan are just abysmal. They don't have any heart at all. But the animes are fantastic.
Yeah, I remember binge watching Attack on Titan when, oh my gosh, that's been going on a while. No, it's over now. When Lydia was a baby, so that was 16 years ago. And man, that was creepy. A bunch of naked big people eating human.
Yeah.
It's like and lots of twists and turns, man. Yeah, really good. Yeah, I do love me some good horror anime. Definitely check out Berserk. I definitely recommend I think the movies do an excellent job of summarizing what happens in the eclipse, and once you get hooked, like a lot of people do, you'll read the manga and be like, oh, that's what they're talking about. This is great. Okay. It's got that, like, everything. I don't know how to summarize it. It's got that dark, sketchy type of art that reminds me a lot of like things I shouldn't have been reading as a kid. I don't know how to describe that, like Heavy Metal magazine under my bed type of feeling, but one of the greatest stories ever, man. One of the greatest protagonists at all.
Yes, you're selling it strongly.
I really like it, man. Okay. I can't believe I'm selling Berserk to Mr. Mike Carey, legendary writer. Okay. Let's see here. I like both, but which is your favorite between the two, Alien by Ridley Scott or Aliens by James?
That's a great question. I think it has to be Aliens. I know Alien is probably the better horror because Aliens turns it into a war movie. But my God, what a war movie! I love Aliens, and I've rewatched it endlessly. And I thought Romulus was great. I thought the set pieces in Romulus were genuinely scary, and I hadn't enjoyed. I did enjoy the first Alien versus Predator. Didn't enjoy Prometheus much at all. Didn't enjoy Covenant much at all. So I felt like the franchise was running out of steam. And then Romulus just restored my faith in it. Really.
So my daughter agrees with you about Alien versus Aliens. I like Aliens. I'm sorry, I agree with you. I like Aliens more. My daughter likes Alien more than Aliens, because she says it's claustrophobic, scary.
Yeah, it's Aliens, it's scarier, But I just
but Aliens is so badass. Plus, you get Bill Paxton having some of the greatest lines in movie history, man.
The dialogue is amazing. The character arcs are amazing. I mean, one of my favorite moments is where Vasquez and the snotty lieutenant, whose name I can't remember, when they're trapped in the duct, and she takes out the grenade, and he puts his hand over hers. My God!
Oh, so bad. Every character. So even freaking Hudson, played by little Bill Paxton, he goes out like a tough dude, man. He's just like, you want some? Oh man, I love that movie. I'm rewatching it. And in this house, I don't know how it is at your house, Mr. Carey. In this house, there's only the director's cut. There is no watching the regular cut. We got to prep the guns and everything, man. This is turning into the Mike Carey anime hour. It's great. I heard Climbers was really good. My buddy Tina is really excited to read that book.
I need to write these down. So Climbers and Berserk. Okay.
Oh, Berserk for sure. Yeah. Lieutenant Gorman. That was it. Thank you so much.
Yes. Yeah.
She says something smart ass too. She's like, you're always an asshole, Gorman, or something like that. And then what a great scene, dude. Can we get a Mike Carey Brute story now after this conversation?
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, I would love to do that.
Marvel now has Predator and Alien, right? Because Disney so technically Brood versus Xenomorphs could happen. Absolutely.
I would love to take a crack at that.
In my honest opinion, it's a strength of Aliens franchise that such different stories work in so well. You ever seen you're a fan of horror, so you've seen The Descent, right? Like that's one of my all-time favorites. So the sequel, The Descent, I think it's just called The Descent 2, uses that formula of Aliens of like, okay, let's go in there and kill these monsters. And it's actually pretty cool. I dig it. Didn't work as well as Aliens, and it wasn't as good as The Descent 1. But it still kind of worked.
The Descent one has like a perfect final moment, I think. I'm not sure I want to see the sequel though.
It's dark and sad, and it's so beautiful. And legit, I don't get scared easy, but it legit made me jump. We watched it in surround sound when it came out on DVD years ago, and I was like, oh my God. The first time you see the creature, I was like, whoa. Oh, this is a great question. Mr. Carey, who are your literary inspirations?
Well, I can I just turn the light on because it's that's better. My literary inspirations. Well, the first writer I ever got absolutely hooked on was Enid Blyton. Who's a writer of fantasy for little children, little kids. The Faraway Tree, The Magic Wishing Chair. I was reading them when I was about 5-6 years old. As a teenager, I was like really, really into Michael Moorcock, the Eternal Champion stories. Then I discovered Roger Zelazny, Nine Princes in Amber, Lord of Light, Isaac Asimov, Ursula Le Guin, the Earthsea books first, and then the sci-fi stuff after that. Outside of genre, I really like Dickens. Some of the Dickens novels are really stonking. Bleak House is amazing. David Copperfield is amazing. Our Mutual Friend is really cool. Who else? Tim Powers I like a lot. Currently I'm reading a lot of T. Kingfisher, who is a great writer of both fantasy and horror. There's a T. Kingfisher horror novel called The Hollow Places, which is genuinely very, very frightening, very atmospheric. China Miéville, British writer of fantasy and sci-fi, part of the new weird movement. I think possibly if I could only take one book to a desert island with me, it would be the Shadow of the Torturer by Gene Wolfe. Although I would try to cheat by having all 4 of the books in one volume. It's a quartet.
To make it a giant omnibus.
Yeah.
Let's see here. For claustrophobic, do not watch The Descent.
Yes, that's a good point.
It's a great movie, though. You need a really good artist if you want to be able to distinguish the Brood from the aliens in the dark.
Yeah, because there's a definite influence there, isn't there? Yeah.
A little bit. Right? Moorcock is so good. Just started reading Elric. Elric is excellent.
Elric is great. I think the Hawkmoon books and the Corum books are even better. I just reread the Jewel in the Skull, the first four, the Runestaff books. They're very, very cool. Could never get into his more literary works. So after a while, he stopped doing fantasy and did straight non-genre literary fiction, and it doesn't work for me. But
So-
he was also the editor on New World for a long time. He was publishing. I think he gave writers like J.G. Ballard and M. John Harrison their start. Yeah, he was the first person to publish them.
So I gotta ask, Mike, if after Cul-De-Sac, what are you working on these days? What's in the future for Mike Carey?
In terms of comics,
In terms of comics, books with pictures, yes, sir.
books of pictures. I'm talking to. I did a story with Dave Kendall a little while back for the Madefire engine. So it doesn't exist as a printed book. It was called Houses of the Holy, and it was about a vampire in 1930s Berlin. So Hitler has come to power. The Nazis have come to power. The vampire is Roma. She's a gypsy girl, and she lives in a house which is actually a basilisk. It's a mature basilisk that's become sessile. It can't move anymore. It just disguised itself as a house. And it's just about monsters. It's about human monsters and inhuman monsters. And we were really proud of it, but Madefire fell apart, and it's never been published as a book, and probably never will be. So Dave and I are putting some ideas together, which we're hoping to pitch soon. I'm doing some shorts for Oni. Oni have got the EC franchise back, so
they do, yeah.
Which is exciting and fun. You mentioned Ghost Box. We're hoping there'll be a second Ghost Box arc. We're pitching that. And actually, there's a big thing which I can't talk about, which I'm hoping to start work on in the new year, which is kind of like a new chapter in a story that seems to have already finished. And I'm not going to encourage you to guess.
A new chapter, the story that's already finished.
Yeah, not one of my stories. A story by a writer I hugely respect and admire.
Okay.
So that will be hopefully be announced sort of early next year.
This is so true. You should cut this into 3 videos. One about Mike Carey comics, one about anime, and one about the horror genre. That is well, Mike is always welcome to come on now that I know that he's into all these different things. That's wonderful to hear. I love it. I only like to say that I love your work.
Thank you.
Hope you will write more stories for Marvel in the future. Is that open? Like for you? Like, would you like to continue writing stories?
So when Jonathan Hickman took over on X-Men, he asked me if I would like to write a Children of the Vault miniseries. And I had to say no because of the other stuff I had on at the time. And I've regretted that ever since because as I said, I love what he did with the franchise. And it would have been cool to be a part of that. So it's not impossible. It's difficult because to write a Marvel book that's in continuity, you have to be on top of the continuity, and that's time consuming. And I'm not currently on top of the continuity. I'd have to do a lot of reading, which I did. First time around, I read hundreds and hundreds of issues that I'd missed out because I think there were like 5,000 issues that had X-Men characters in. If you counted all of the spin-offs and all of the appearances elsewhere, 5,000 issues of continuity. And I wanted to make sure that I knew everything that had happened to the characters I was going to use, which meant in some cases, I'm not proud of it, it meant getting bootleg CDs and reading entire runs. I did destroy them afterwards, but still. Well.
No pirating for Mike Carey. No one will ever find record of this taking place. My head thinks the same way. Let's destroy the physical media. No one will find out. Actually, this this would be a great character for you to work on.
Moon Knight.
Moon Knight, yeah, it's an excellent character, and it's definitely up your alley. And I don't want to like corner you into, because I feel like when it comes to writing, sometimes you get typecasted into the type of stories that you are asked to do, right? If you're coming in from a certain like genre, they're like, oh, that's all he can do. Let's have him write Marvel horror or Werewolf by Night or things like that. But Moon Knight does kind of make sense in the type of stories that you like to tell that are multi-layered with the dash of horror.
That would be cool.
And we'll take just a couple more questions because I know it's getting late for you, Mr. Carey. Mr. Carey, did you find any of the X-Men difficult to write?
In a way, I mean, the answer is no, but the answer is no because I chose the characters that I wanted to write. I was sort of allowed to cherry pick. For some characters who had not been used for a long time, I kind of, in a quiet way, reinvented them. I gave them a voice that was a bit different from who they've been in the past. I think I did that with Ariel. I think maybe I did it with Frenzy to a certain extent. But yeah, I steered clear of characters whose voices I didn't think I could do convincingly. At one point, I was offered a Storm miniseries, and I couldn't find a way into that. And another time, I was invited to write Alpha Flight, and I backed away from that for the same reason. I just couldn't find a take on it that would work for me.
That's really interesting that you were approached, and people would that read your run would have lost their mind if you had done that Children of the Vault miniseries during the Krakoa era.
I wish I'd said yes. I really wish I'd said yes.
Well, you were busy though, and busy is good, and that could, and that door is never closed. You can always return to these characters. We've seen just recently Gillen returned to the characters that he wrote. So he got back and started writing stories in the Krakoa era. So when it comes to X-Men, I think that door is always open for I want to say most of the writers. I don't think anybody really burnt any bridges. I don't know. Maybe I don't know things behind the scenes. Maybe they did, but
maybe Tchaikovsky.
Yeah, probably. So do you have any advice for anybody that wants to become a writer and working in comics as a writer?
For people who want to become a writer, yes. For getting into comics, no, because I guess I did it so long ago. I think my advice wouldn't be worth all that much now. But for people just wanting to get into writing, I always say that there's like 3 golden rules. First of all, you got to read like a maniac. You got to read really extensively in any genre or medium that you intend to write in. You've got to start by loving it. And you've got to start by knowing it. You can't be part of a conversation if you're not reading. Also, second rule is just write. Just keep on writing and writing and writing because it's 1,000 hours thing. It's partly a mechanical skill, like riding a bike, and you get better at it the more you do. So you have to just keep on as much as you can. And the third one is get as much feedback as you can, and get feedback from people who don't love you. Get feedback from people who are not going to say, yes, it's fantastic, dear.
That's a really, really, like, I have never heard that suggestion. Like, that's really smart. Yeah. Get feedback from people that don't know you or like you.
But yeah, those are
your family, right?
But I think the medium has changed an awful lot since I came on board. So advice for getting into comics, I'm not going to offer any because I think that the route that I took is not the same as the route that you will take.
And that's also true. So looking forward to the Cul-De-Sac wrapping up, and looking forward to your future projects, including the one that you were really, really riddling about. And I'm looking forward to having you back on, Mike, anytime you want to, man.
Well, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed this.
Seriously, it was a lot of fun talking to you and getting to know the things that you like. And getting to hear that you're watching anime with your daughter and horror movies too. Man, this is good.
Maybe I could come back for a One Piece retrospective when I finish.
Oh, would you we can review One Piece, the live action season 2. Seriously, anytime you want to come back, Mike. Anytime.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. And I just want to take the time to thank everybody that joined us for this live.
Thanks everyone. Great to be part of that conversation.
And hopefully the next time we talk, I'll be like, hey, did you know we're getting an X-Men Legacy Omnibus? That's finally right. And finally the Unwritten Compendium Volume 2. Oh yes, and people are saying read the Dad.
Oh, okay. I didn't know there was a manga. Okay, thank you. I will check it out. That show is so insane.
Yes, it is. My brother loves it. He told me the pitch of that one too, and I'm like, when I get time, I'll watch it. And Berserk, that's the one, Mike.
Yeah. Okay.
Everybody, stay healthy and safe out there. We are out of here. Thank you again to Mr. Carey. Go and check out Cul-De-Sac from Bad Idea. And